Let's find out in the Multopedia.
There are 3 different kinds of rock: igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. Which one is which depends on how they're formed.
Rocks are formed in the earth itself, and in many different ways.
Metamorphic means to change. So metamorphic rocks are just igneous or sedimentary rocks that have been changed. Of course, it takes a long time for them to change, and it takes a lot of heat or a lot of weight pressing on them to make them change into metamorphic rock, like when mountains are formed.
You really know your rocks, Eater.
Yep, I'm a real rock fan.
Hello?
Greetings, fellow space wanderer. Cosmic Layla now materializing. Hiya, Jer. State your coordinates, or otherwise, how you doing?
Okay, I just got done feeding my daughter her 3 o'clock meal. Right, Inara?
Such a pretty name.
Here it is. Okay. Well, she's still in my lap, so if you'll let me
Sure.
get up and put her in her bouncer. Okay.
Okay, well, now we're going to do a forward right side up interview with the other half of the Chinese Braille pages, which went missing and then became invisible after the Martians made off with them the first time. And this time we've got a lot of stuff to get through, so it's got to go boom, boom, boom like cookies. All right?
All right.
Okay, ready for blast off?
Yeah.
Here's the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What was your life like growing up in Kent, Ohio? Did your folks encourage your interest in music, or...?
It was a blue-collar, repressive experience. Can you imagine? I was, I was forced to be born Catholic and go deal with priests and nuns, and it was tribulation unparalleled.
Oh, I see. Okay. What was the first musical group you encountered as a youngster?
Oh, when I was really young, it was Tex Ritter and the Countrymen or something. They had a song on the radio. Oh my God, it was great. Ghost Riders in the Sky.
Oh, cool.
And I used to, at 3 years old, jump up and down holding on to the huge wooden console radio that weighed hundreds of pounds. That's what people had then. It was a massive piece of equipment with dials, and when I heard that song come on, I would bounce up and down to it.
Oh, wow, what a vision.
And then it was Frankie Lane, and then it was Elvis Presley.
Oh, yeah, right. Elvis Presley. I believe the song was Don't Be Cruel.
Don't Be Cruel.
Mm-hmm.
With the Jordanaires, I saw him play it on TV.
Yeah.
And changed my life.
All right. Totally cool. What was the first song you wrote in your early days?
First song I wrote was Beehive.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I wrote that song when I was 20.
What do you think your vocation would have been if you hadn't gotten into rock and roll music?
I think I would have been a college professor.
Oh, yeah? What would be your subject of study?
Printmaking and painting.
I see. Okay. What's your favorite color?
No color. Like, basically middle gray.
Middle gray, or as they call it, pewter gray, right?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. It appears you like to use the primary colors red and yellow a lot in your visual art. What makes you gravitate to those particular colors?
Because we were always being subversive and kind of satiric and transgressive, we used those colors because long ago we were taught in the 70s that these are the colors that the fast food companies like Burger King and McDonald's use to make people buy things.
Yeah, so it's like kind of the colors that merchandisers use to, like, red makes them like hungry, and red and green, and yellow too, right? And like mustard and ketchup, right?
Yeah, there you go. That's DEVO, right? The mustard is the yellow suit, and the ketchup is the red hat.
There you go. Yep. Never mind where we're going to put the hot dog.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know where the hot dogs go, whether you want them or not. Yeah.
Okay. Who are some of your favorite names in the art world?
Okay. God, that was over time. It's pretty amazing. Yeah, it would be Marcel Duchamp. It would. Guy, who's the guy that painted the Primal Scream?
Are you talking about Edvard Munch?
Yeah, I don't know if he was a muncher, but he was Edvard Munch, and yeah, and of course, one of the greatest German expressionists, Max Ernst, George Gross, Jim Dine, Andy Warhol, Roy Lichtenstein, Klaus Oldenburg, Jeff Koons. Yeah, and who's the English guy that dissected the shark into 15 pieces and put it inside of a tank?
Okay.
Damien Hirst.
Oh, okay. What do you like about those artists? I mean, what, inspires you about their art?
Well, the same thing that inspires me about Banksy, where they're pushing the idea of what art even is, because they realize that art is some intersection between the culture we live in, the politics we accept, and the science, like the knowledge. And they, artists are creative with that, and they're part of their time, but they're visionary in the sense that they know what that time means. They know the significance of where they are.
Yeah, there you go. Well said. Me, I like a lot of the classical artists such as Da Vinci, Picasso, Van Gogh.
Okay, well.
And some modern ones, Edvard
yeah.
Munch, like we mentioned, Roger Dean, John Petre, Gage Taylor, and, of course, the great works of G.V. Casale.
Yeah. I aspire to the levels of those people, but time will tell.
Right. Only time will tell. Yep. Okay. When were you in?
What?
What?
Well, de-evolution is real, so I think somebody realized we did something.
Yeah, I think so. When you were in elementary school, what was the first book you read?
Oh God! Wow. I don't think I would remember. Because we were just given these, silly propaganda textbooks to read that everybody had to read. And of course, being in Catholic school, you were forced to read the damn Bible all the time,
Right.
which was traumatizing to a kid. You read these stories and they were horrible. You're like, they did that? It's like, that's not right, Everybody's always killing everybody, and,
Yeah, especially in Revelations.
the father and the father and the son, and boy, it's ugly stuff.
Yeah. Did you ever read a book back then called The Lemonade Trick by Scott Corbett?
No, but it sounds like I should have.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting book. It's about a little boy who gets a chemistry set, and basically the chemistry set, it makes people turn into, like, sort of the opposite of what they are. So they're a really nice person, they turn to a mean person, or if they're just, they're shy, they turn really...
That's great.
All right.
That's a great premise. It's like Jungian, right? Because we all have duality and a dark side, and the side we're trying to, like, suppress, and that book was for kids, apparently, that kind of dealt with that.
Oh, yeah. It was very DEVO for me to read.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. Were you into reading comic books as a kid?
To a degree, yeah. I don't think I got into it as heavy as some of my, classmates. But yes, definitely. And all the obvious ones. Although I like, Stephen silly ones like Little Lulu and Archie, and but of course I preferred the DC comics, and Superman was, at the top, and Batman.
Yeah, okay, Superman versus Batman, yeah. All right. What about cartoons? What are your favorites?
I'm not a big cartoon guy, but when I was the right age for cartoons, two stuck out. that really were disturbing but really exciting, which was the Betty Boop cartoons, Betty Boop, and early Popeye with Bluto. Before Bluto turned into Brutus.
Yeah, the early Popeye is the best, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, especially with those kind of cartoons, it's kind of creepy, but it's artistic at the same time.
They're creepy.
Well, it's everything has eyes and it has a personality, and even the telephone,
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that stuff, too. Here's a classic line. Have you read any interesting books lately?
Not lately. There's books I should read, and I've become such a bad reader because I spent so much of my life from middle school all the way through graduate school being an academic and reading books. At some point, I think I rebelled and preferred music and visual information, and that was a stupid thing to do. But, yeah, I read about books in the New York Book Review and go, oh, I've got to read that. And then I don't go buy it, and I don't read it.
Well, it's hard to find time to do that, right, too? Because, you gotta...
That's the problem. I mean, we've all been reduced to, morons with ADD because of smartphones.
Right. I know. Okay, there's an old pic of you wearing glasses on stage with Bob Mothersbaugh. Did you used to wear glasses, and do you wear contact lenses nowadays?
I remember that. Those glasses, I bought them in New York, 1977, at a place in the Village, and those glasses were the frames that William Colby of the CIA wore, and Andy Warhol wore the same ones. So, I was Mr. Artsy. I wanted to do the same thing. And, yes, I was nearsighted, but there was really no reason for me to be wearing glasses on stage because you're not trying to read road signs at the back of the auditorium. So, it was an affectation, and no, I still don't have contact lenses, and I only wear glasses when I drive because I discovered that I was supposed to be able to read signs sooner than I was being able to read them. I was having to get close to read them,
Right. Right, as you drive a little closer, oh, that's where I am. Like that?
Yeah. Yeah. Whoops.
Okay, now some questions about DEVO.
Yeah.
Where did the idea come about to portray the members of DEVO specifically as potato spuds?
Well, that was part of the original kind of concept and manifesto of de-evolution before DEVO the band existed, which was referring to human beings as spuds, and spuds were the commentators, ha ha ha. They weren't royalty, they weren't born with a silver spoon in their mouth. These are the people that don't have leading man looks and don't have royalty and big money in their backgrounds. They're the spuds, and we were spuds. And spuds can rise to the occasion because they have eyes all around. So that's how it came about.
And the word underground comes to mind when you think of potatoes and spuds because they grow. Where do they grow?
That's right, in the earth. Yeah,
right.
They grow in the earth.
In the underground, that's right. So that's definitely the best portrayal of that.
Yeah.
DEVO's kind of like an inverted, mutated punk Beatles Stones with half the pages missing, don't you think?
It's true. It's true. We were the examples of de-evolution in reality. The proof was in the pudding. We didn't exempt ourselves from that quotient. And you're right, we did have that kind of the whole being more than the sum of its parts, like groups you just mentioned, and being innovative and experimental and creating yet digestible what should have been hit pop songs in many cases that inexplicably weren't, like Jerking Back and Forth and Freedom of Choice and Big Mess and Gates of Steel. It's like, well, why weren't these hits? Uncontrollable Urge was not a hit.
No, I know, right? You were actually attacked for that one, but they actually said, we know what you're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
What about DEVO's Dove, the Band of Love?
Yeah. Yeah, well, that was us having fun. We always liked performance art and, messing with people's heads, and so we just became a born-again Christian group, and we actually went and rented these horrible mustard-colored polyester suits from a real estate company that made all their agents dress in uniforms, Century 21. And so those were Century 21 suits. And then we wore white patent leather shoes with them.
Yeah, and not to mention the visors, right?
The visors!
Yeah. Don't
The
forget about
visors. And, well, we were lucky we had those on the night we came out as our own opening act in 1979 in Long Beach on New Year's Eve. And the pyrotechnics went wrong, and sparks were flying all over the stage, and pieces of, pyrotechnic incendiary ash, and those visors actually protected us because it was coming down on us.
that. Really? Wow. That's a wild story. How did the idea for the Wipeouters come about?
I had nothing to do with that. It was my brother Bob. He actually was in a band in high school called the Wipeouters.
Oh.
And he told everybody the story jokingly, and then, of course, it was like, okay, let's do the Wipeout.
Oh, you did do one song on there, though, right? Luna Park.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I wrote that one, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the best songs on there, actually, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Why was Shout a commercial flop, and why did Warner Brothers cancel DEVO's contract and tour back then?
Because Shout was the wrong thing for DEVO to do, and at just the wrong time. DEVO had always been like an amazing band that played together and sounded like a machine, but it wasn't controlled by machines. It had a soul, like James Brown and the Flames. It was that tight, and people couldn't believe we were really playing that stuff. And then suddenly with Shout, we weren't playing that stuff. It was the machines. And it left nothing for Alan to do and nothing for Bob to do. So it was squandering what the group's strengths were and the talents of those incredible people. And it felt soulless. It was like autocratic machine music, and Warner's heard that. Even idiots knew, wait a minute, something's wrong here. And
The human factor is missing. Right?
Yeah, they didn't like that. And I understood that.
I see. Well, what drove it in that direction? I mean, why did it go into the automatic?
Well, you'd have to ask Mark Mothersbaugh.
Oh, I don't want to. That's okay.
Yeah.
I'll take your word for it. When DEVO did the song Disco Dancer, was DEVO kept in a disco box by Warner Brothers for a while, and would you consider yourself as a disco boy?
Certainly not. It was, we were trying to have some fun there. Although I'd never hated disco. I mean, I think a lot of the early disco and what Giorgio Moroder was doing with Donna Summers and other stuff that was coming out of Europe was really fresh and exciting and changing music. And there's several like disco songs that I like are the more, hardcore industrial pumping, humping ones, not the pretty dumb ones with a lot of strings.
Mm-hmm.
Although I did love, one of my favorite songs is the Bee Gees doing Staying Alive, because
okay.
At first it just sounds like, oh yeah, the Bee Gees, they're singing like the Chipmunks, and then it's like you're listening to the lyrics, it's like, I'm going nowhere, somebody help me, I'm going nowhere, somebody help me. And then it's in this movie, it drove the movie Saturday Night Fever, and John Travolta plays this, meathead loser, and in the end he doesn't even get the girl. It turns out that she's being kept by a sugar daddy in Brooklyn, and he meets the guy and spends all night looking at the Brooklyn Bridge on a bench, and leaves in the morning. It's like a bummer.
Right.
And one of his friends jumps off the bridge and dies, and the girl is trying to hang with the group. She gets raped.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's
right. I know all this Terrible
It's a
stuff.
It wouldn't be made today. It wouldn't
No.
make it today.
That's true. And the Bee Gees also came out with another interesting song, "How Deep Is Your Love." I don't know if you remember
Yeah.
that one, but
Yeah.
that was actually a really
Yeah, sure.
musical one that was not so much about just, selling drinks in a club and pumping your booty up and down, but kind of musical too, So they had that availability
what I
to
mean with-
traverse,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what they did with that soundtrack was unbelievable. They rose to the occasion.
Mm-hmm. Okay, how did the DEVO demos Satan and Money Pit become Baby Doll?
You'd have to ask the devil. Well, obviously,
is that so?
I think that as much as collaboration was being attacked at that point, I think there was nobody in the group on board with Satan other than a belly laugh joke for 30 seconds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
I thought it was
then the
hilarious.
other one was just, Money Pit was, we were being asked to write a song for a movie, and then they didn't want it.
That sucks. So I know it seems to me like the song was going through the different phases of you're trying to come up with lyrics that would be acceptable to the semi-mainstream.
Which is something that we liked, something we liked, and of course I love the movie Baby Doll.
Mm-hmm.
It's a film noir movie from the 50s. If you ever watched it, unbelievable.
I'll have to check it out.
Oh yeah, Baby Doll. And so it started with that movie.
Oh, I see. Okay, interesting. All right, it seems that there are two DEVOs. One is the heavy punk band. The other is the mainstream Carnation Milk version portrayed in the media. Do you think that's true?
That seems to be what happened, despite our best efforts. Yeah, I always liked the integration of the two. I thought that's when we were our best, when it was creative punk, angry energy mixed with interesting, unexpected chord changes and sounds.
Yep, I agree with that. In DEVO, did you prefer to play the bass guitar, or were you relegated to playing keyboards?
I still prefer the bass guitar.
Oh, that's
I'm
good.
an old man.
Oh, well, that shouldn't have anything to do with it. You enjoy playing the bass, though, don't you?
Oh, of course, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I did. That's what I loved. That's who I was.
Yeah, instead of playing the keyboards, playing the bass is your original love,
Yeah, keyboard bass shrinks your Johnson.
Okay, there we go. Said in so many words.
Yeah.
A lot of DEVO Jerry songs sound like they have a tribal beat. Have you ever met any Native Americans, or as they are otherwise called, Indians?
Only a long time ago, when I was briefly hanging out with Russell Means. That was his Americanized name. He was Cherokee, the American Indian that became cause celeb in Hollywood because his issues and his political activism stemmed back to Wounded Knee.
Mm-hmm.
And he was embraced by none other than Larry Flint, who was giving him a big, platform in his porno mag that was mainstream, that was competing with Playboy. And so I would be going to these parties, and there was Russell Means and some of his Native American crew that were all activists, and it was very interesting. Very interesting.
I see. Okay, so you have had a brush with some Indians then.
Oh, yeah.
That's interesting.
I love them Indians. Love them Indians.
All right. You played with DEVO at Pier 17 in New York City in 2022. Did you know Frank Zappa played near there back in 1984?
I did not.
What do you think of Frank Zappa and his lyrics about DEVO being a plastic group?
Yeah, it's funny because when I was, in my late teens, I loved Frank Zappa, right? And the first album, Freak Out, and all the way through Weasels Ripped My Flesh. And, you know, I mean, obviously it was very inspiring to DEVO. And then when we found out that he was dissing us and pissing on us, it was like, wow, well, fuck you. You know?
Oh, gosh.
Well, yeah, that ended that. Wasn't, you know, in other words, the respect was not mutual.
Frank Zappa referred to DEVO in his book under the heading Archetypical American Musical Icons, such as Twilight Zone, Mr. Rogers, Jaws, etc. He said, quote, "We use the fake DEVO texture, anything absolutely squared off, mechanical, dry, and dead sounding. Invocation of this plasticized mantra adds another dimension to a lyric," unquote. And what do you think about those Zappa comments? Those are exactly...
Yikes. Well, you know, maybe he's got a point, and I just was not open to it.
I see. Well, I think DEVO got a bum rap. They were often misconstrued by their appearance, you know, like judging a book by its cover. And it's possible Frank might have had a sneaking admiration for DEVO, hence the DEVO texture he included in his performances, because sure made Frank raise his eyebrow, which he only did for a select few, so...
Yeah,
you're still special.
Yeah, he might have been somewhat threatened and somewhat envious, yeah.
Yeah, well, he was even a little bit freaked out about... Well, actually, it was John Lennon that was freaked out about Frank Zappa, but Frank Zappa, I think that was another mutual clash, and they actually shared the same stage on that one.
Yeah.
You seem to be quite good at telling song backstories, so I'd like to ask you about a few more tracks. Starting with some from the Jihad Jerry album. I'll mention the song, you tell me the story behind it, okay?
Yeah.
Here goes. The Time Is Now.
Well, the time's always now, and it's getting near the 11th hour, or rather 10 seconds to the 12th hour as we fry the planet proudly with 8 billion people and greedy capitalists destroying the natural environment happily for short-term gain. It's greed, and that takes us back to the American Indians that had the concept of WAWTC, W-E-T-I-K-O, which will be my next solo release. It'll be a suite called WAWTC, like a 15-minute suite, and it's about they see white people's greed as an actual virus that is a abstract replacement for real cannibalism, so that they can get away with cannibalism without actually killing people. They kill their resources, they kill their living, they kill their spirits, they take everything from them for themselves. It's cannibalism. Cultural and mental cannibalism is called WAWTC, and they actually think it's an actual disease. And so the time is now is basically about the fact that the time is almost over.
I see. Well, you know, about the planet burning up, it might freeze over, too, because, I mean, all you need is, like, a couple of supervolcanoes or even a nuclear weapon or two, you know, and that would cause a winter instead of the thing that everybody thinks it's going to be a big fireball, so...
Well, the point is we have a system the planet had a system that was ecologically sustainable and beautifully balanced, and we, on purpose, fucked it up.
Yep, that's true. And also, the planet certainly doesn't need any help doing its climate change, because I think that there's a little of both going on. The Earth is doing its polar shift thing, and the...
Well, if they kill humans, if the planet kills its hugest pest, it'll go back to being incredible. It would take 100 years, but in 100 years, it would be beautiful again.
Probably. Next song, The Owl.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I always felt like one. The wise old owl, like the person that's just observing, watching, thinking, making analytical conclusions. You don't want to try to deceive an owl. So that song's about people that are duplicitous and lying creeps and betraying others and like the owl's telling them, listen, watch out. Although if you're an honest person, you have nothing to fear from the owl. The owl likes you.
Yeah, there you go. All right. If the shoe fits, who's the little man with all the answers?
That was written during the time of W and the Iraq invasion, and it was, it's about him. It's about W. And although Al could be about Trump.
Oh, yeah, I can definitely be transmogrified to any old idiot that's in power, right?
Yeah. Morons, authoritarian morons, tyrants, people that are unreasonable.
Yeah, even Putin in Russia over there.
How about him?
Okay.
Wow.
All right. Pieces of Joe.
Oh, yeah, that's one that I had written so long ago and decided never to release, and then a friend of mine said, no, listen, you got to just let people hear what you were doing, even if you don't like it anymore. Quit trying to control everything. And I thought, okay. And that's what that song was really about, was Joe Camel.
Oh.
Because Joe Camel, and it became a big scandal. If you go back, do you remember the character of Joe Campbell in all the magazines promoting Camel cigarettes?
Of course.
Well, if you look at Joe Camel's head, they had pretty definitively proved that if you take a little piece of paper and cut like a 1-inch square hole in it and start matting, you know what matting is, right? You put it over the picture and only look at a section of it at a time, right?
Yeah.
If you do that with Joe Camel, every part of Joe Camel's head is a cock or a pussy. And you can find this image. Find it. You can do it for yourself if you don't believe me. I couldn't believe it. It's true.
Where did that idea come from? And who's the first one to figure that out?
Well, I wasn't. Somebody wrote it, and yeah, and I thought, is that true? Come on. And then I because they wrote it at the time when those images were everywhere in magazines and billboards and stuff, and so I did it, and it was like, oh my God, they're not kidding. You know, it's like the famous trick with the Land O'Lakes butter.
No, do tell.
No? Oh,
no.
Yeah. Okay. Well, because the lithographers that designed that box, it was their private joke. If you take the butter out of the box and you fold the box in half, and then cut a little window over Pocahontas's boobs, right, in her dress, and you open the window flap, her knees, as they are drawn and as they are rendered, are tits. In other words, it just looks like she's exposed her boobs. You can do it. You can buy a pack now, and it's still.
Oh, that's priceless. I didn't know that.
I'm not kidding.
Me. I believe you. All right, I have to move on now. Okay, Hugh Boone Stomp.
Oh yeah, well that was just about subhumans, right? It's like I'm a human baby. I'm a cross between a human and an ape. You know, and what does he say? I've been hurt and I'm going to hurt you. In other words, he's a guy that's like got corkscrews in the brain. He's not rational. He's not logical. He's like all the horrid people running around today that are, psychos and clowns. Where the inmates are running the asylum. It's like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz, and those are Hugh Boones, man, and and they're dangerous because they have problems and they're twisted, but they're going to project it onto you. They're going to make their problem your problem. That's what the Hugh.
I see. They're going to inflict their crap on you, basically. That's right. They can't have any fun, so they're jealous, so they're gonna go and mess up your good time, which isn't fair.
Right. That's a Hugh Boone.
It's not nice. Okay, yeah, I got it, yeah. Okay, we're going to switch to DEVO. What was the first DEVO song ever conceived?
Wow, the first DEVO song ever conceived. That's interesting. Man, because you can't include the DEVO versions of stuff I had written kind of before DEVO, like Beehive and I Need a Chick and
Right.
and things like that. I'm a Potato. A Plan for You. Those were all pre-DEVO songs. Can You Take It? Be Stiff was pre-DEVO. It might have been the Smart Patrol.
Oh. Wow,
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, Smart Patrol was written in 1975. So I would have to say, okay, it's either the Smart Patrol or Jocko Homer.
Okay. Now I'll mention the DEVO tune and you tell me the story behind it, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Planet Earth.
That's easy. That's like a person who feels like an alien ruminating about the planet that he lives on where he can't believe human behavior.
Yeah, it's a very straightforward song, but I think it's one of your best because it's...
Well, it's like the man who fell to Earth. It's like from the point of view of the man who fell to Earth.
Exactly. Yep, you could probably play that song over some of the scenes from that movie and it'd be like synced up, like a music video probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Later is now. If later is now, isn't this later? Now?
True. That was the point. Like, people say, I'll deal with it later. Everything is like, oh, yeah, I'll see you later, or I'll deal with it later. Like in, in The Room, the movie, The Room. The worst movie ever made, one of the worst movies ever made. That, of course, It's So Bad It's Good, with Tommy Wiseau. You ever see it?
Not recently, but I think I've heard of it.
Well, every time you watch it, and every time they want to get out of a scene, he goes, I'll be back later. I'll see you later. I'll deal with it later. And and then they cut. and that's people with their heads in the sand, the ostrich with the head in the sand. It's like everybody's like kicking the can down the road and now there'll be hell to pay.
Right? I know, that's how I got into this climate situation in the first place, some would say, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, when we do it. When you do what?
Yeah, well, everybody knows what doing it means, but
there's no double meaning?
Although, well, I guess maybe there's more than double. Starting with the obvious where everybody understands sex, but then, doing anything new and anything creative on any level, whether it's sexual or not, can have the same kind of impact on your life, the same kind of strong, forceful changes, mental and physical, to you if you do something significant. If you do something, because sex is what? It's powerful, it's dangerous, it's unpredictable. You think you know what's going on, but you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what will be the end result to your activity. They try to trivialize it. They try to treat it like junk food and that it doesn't mean anything. But the fact is, whether they're deluding themselves that it doesn't, it does. And people's lives are completely changed by it. Starting with like having an accidental baby.
The big picture.
Yeah, well, we were always looking for the big picture, right? And it's a silly song, but it's not about a silly thing. So we were trying to be lighthearted about keeping in mind the big picture, rather than getting sucked into all the just ridiculous tabloid trivia.
Petty, yeah. The little petty things that don't mean anything, and you're,
don't mean anything.
You're gonna miss the beauty of the big picture, basically, right?
That's right.
Yeah, and I noticed that many of the tracks off that album be very unappreciated, and not from me, though, because I appreciate it very much. One of my favorite albums is Smooth Noodle Maps.
Yeah, I like it.
Yes, I think the songs relate to each other, because, like back to the When We Do It, and like the Big Picture, those both tell kind of a story about, using the power of other things besides the obvious, which is like, your mental ability to connect with another individual, without touching, without even seeing them, it's, yeah, so, yeah, not to get too metaphysical, like the Vulcan mind meld thing, Okay. All right, The Shadow!
Well, that was inspired by my experiences with Jungian philosophy and reading about Carl Jung, where he thought that we were flawed, fatally flawed as humans, as a species, by this deep-sided duality where, we have projected good and evil on the world, and we made God and the devil, and really all we're talking about is the warring forces inside of our own brains, the way our brains work. And he called the shadow part of our existence the dark forces that we give into, the fear and the avarice and the greed, and that makes people do bad things. And so that's what that song's about.
I see. And you also included Jimmy and Tammy Baker in that song, I think. Right,
sure
at the
did.
Time.
Well, because all these evangelicals are the essence of people deluding themselves. They are the darkest, most evil people parading as, good people, as spiritual people that you should follow. It's a hoax.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, message of hope. What kind of message of hope have you found these days, if any?
Oh, I guess it'd be hard to describe, but the only hope I have left is that people are giving evil people too much credit. What I mean by that is all these conspiracy theories that go so far that if you were to just accept any one of them and say, okay, there are evil people really manipulating the weather on purpose and creating droughts and fires on purpose, for instance. There's millions of people that believe that, right? Now, if somebody could do that and get away with it, and nobody's busted them, and nobody agrees on it, and they can't do anything about it, okay? If we're that hopeless, then it's like, I'm going to quit being worried. I'm just going to give up, jump into the void like Star Wars, like, okay, let's do it, and hope that they're wrong. Because if anybody is that evil and that organized and can do that and get away with it, then there is no hope. But I'm going to bet that you're giving these people too much credit, and that's the hope, is that nobody is that organized to pull that off. Nobody's that cool, that smart, that evil. They can't do it.
Oh, I certainly hope so, too.
There's my hope. Yeah.
Okay. Well, at least you got some hope there, You need to try to stay positive as you can during these not so positive, treacherous times.
Yeah. As they say, it's like about as much hope as a one man in a butt-kicking contest. A one-legged man. Sorry.
That was
a one-legged man in a butt-kicking contest.
Okay. All right. Think fast.
Oh, yeah, that was just me having fun. I was just thinking of a really, one of those dark dilemma games where they give you a Hobson's choice between two horrible things where no matter what you choose, you're not going to win. And
like
a dilemma that, you can't get out of. And that's what that's why I wrote that song.
Okay. Kind of like the Kobayashi Maru, right? Like the no-win situation.
Yeah, and I was just having fun with it.
Yeah. It's one of those songs that makes you think. So, you know, you don't run into
Right.
too many songs that make you think. So, you know, that's why I think that shouldn't have been cut from the album. That should have been on Something for Everybody, not Else, in my opinion.
I know, it's funny. When you listen to Something Else for Everybody, it's like, well, these songs are as good as those songs. But, you know,
I
who
know.
can figure that out? It was just like between, you know, Mark and Warner's, you know, between them not liking things and Mark not liking things, everything that they didn't like showed up on Something Else for Everybody.
Yeah, I know. I noticed that a lot of them were Jerry songs, and I'm going, why are you doing that? Because,
Well,
seriously.
Yeah, that could probably just be about money, right?
Right? Throw money at the problem. No, that made it on. That didn't make it on either, actually. No, that's true. No, that wasn't one of the songs I wanted to do.
I love Throw Money at the... Yeah, I love that song.
Okay. Come on.
Come on.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Back to that. That's from, I think that was on Shout, wasn't it?
I think so. Well, you know, I just wanted to get you to talk about that song because it sounded like you were writing about, in the lyrics, you were talking about, you know, running away from the big lasers that are brighter than the sun and all that.
I was trying to escape the current reality I was in, and the fact that we were involved in a record that was depressing me, and yeah, I wanted out of my situation.
Oh, I see. So it's just an expression of that. Okay. The Fourth Dimension. What's with stealing the Day Tripper riff?
We were just having fun again. I thought that was a nice reference to throw in, you know, a little homage, you know. And the Fourth Dimension is, it's about a girl that falls in love with another girl and leaves the guy that she's been with.
Oh, okay. That's the backstory for that one. Okay.
Yep.
The Satisfied Mind.
Yeah, that was a little private joke because when I was 18, I was in a band. We were playing a lot of Rolling Stones and Chuck Berry and Yardbirds, and it was called The Satisfied Mind.
Oh.
And so I just used that title and started riffing on, because I made myself laugh that I'd ever been in a band called The Satisfied Mind. And I thought, well, you know, the idea is if you're not in a constant state of wanting and needing and yearning, like if you're okay, you know, like who's the
Yeah?
the Irish female pop star that ruined her career by ripping up a picture of the Pope? Sinead O'Connor.
I was going to say
Sinead O'Connor.
Sinead O'Connor, yeah.
And she had that title, I do not want what I have not got. And I always loved that.
Or Nothing is What I Want. That's another one, right?
And I just thought, that's perfect. You know, so this, you know, with the mind that's satisfied, you're free. Because you're not constantly needing and wanting.
Okay. Here to Go.
Yeah. We're here to go. Yeah, that was influenced by beatnik poets from San Francisco in the 60s. John Giorno and someone else that made that point back then. None of the lyrics came from their poem, but the idea did. And I just always loved that, you know. It's like people always want answers. They always want to know, why are we alive? What are we doing here? What's the meaning of life? It's like, here's what the meaning of life is. The meaning of life is to live it. We are here to go forward and to experience things.
Right.
And to do it.
Dig it while you're here, right?
That's it.
There you go. All right. How about Puppet Boy? Did you have somebody specific in mind when you wrote that song?
No, not really. It was just riffing on the Pinocchio mythology. And obviously someone that's being controlled, right? And doesn't know it. But then he rebels.
Uh-huh. Through being cool, are there some subgenius references such as the lyrics that go, eliminate the ninnies and the twits and spank the pink that tries to drive you nuts?
I love those lyrics.
So do I.
Yeah, through being cool. Well, that, again, it was, DEVO always having fun with themselves. It's like, we never were cool as far as we were considered, so we just thought it was funny to state to the world that we were through being cool because it was time to, push back against this hideous right-wing culture that Reagan had kind of empowered. There was the rise and of influence and power in the religious right and the evangelicals because of him, and the erosion of individual rights and women's health care rights, and just like now, it keeps happening. These right-wing authoritarian monsters, and it was just getting really ugly, and he was such a phony, and such crap was coming out of his mouth. So it was like DEVO saying, okay, we're in the fight now.
Yeah, we're going to get our laser guns out and get rid of the lame dancers dancing on the disco floor and leave the disco dancers still dancing, right?
Yeah.
All right. Social fools.
Oh, sure. These are people that believe by conforming to kind of bourgeois made-up rules that have nothing to do with any kind of truth or justice, that they will be rewarded. And this is the singer is telling them that's not the way reality works. If you do that, you become tools of society. You don't make the rules. You're, you got to go out and make your own deals. You can't just be like constantly doing what you're told.
Right, exactly. No matter how much, like you mentioned before, people want to be told what to do, they should try to rebel against that and try to override it because, otherwise you're just not going to be able to enjoy life very much, right?
I just can't even imagine being liking being told what to do. I can't imagine.
Me neither, man. I really can't. That just eludes me. Okay, gotta move around. The One That Gets Away. Why was there no multi-track version?
I'm not sure. I guess we weren't committed enough to it to, be persistent and see it through. Looking for the girl that gets away, right?
Yeah, I think, The One That Gets Away. That was...
Yeah.
Although the melody did show up in another song, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Wiggly World.
Well, boy, that was just an honest, outburst of from 1977 of the world we live in. It was written in 77, and it's exactly how I felt.
Has it gotten more wiggly since then?
You know it. Well, the Earth is tilted about 3 feet further from its axis, and physicists said that should never happen. So yeah, it's real wiggly. It's real wiggly now.
Okay. Which songs would be included on your ultimate DEVO playlist?
Gosh. Oh my God. That's so tough. I think you covered them and more tonight, but
okay.
I think, I do think I'm a Potato would have to be on there for sure. And I think Mechanical Man and Shrivel Up, Jerking Back and Forth, and Big Mess, and Freedom of Choice.
Okay. The Desert Island Bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one that you take to the deserted island, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And Beautiful World.
Of course.
If I'm on the desert island, I gotta have Beautiful World.
Of course. And No Place Like Home for that one too, right? You gotta have.
I love that.
Part 1 and Part 2.
People ignored that song, man. God, somebody should have used that in a movie.
Yes, that's like a no-brainer. Okay, here's a curious one. The Blues Brothers movie was shot and released before the DEVO single "Whip It." The question is, was the whip in Whip It derived from the Blues Brothers movie rawhide sequence from Bob's Country Bunker, or is it just a coincidence?
Yeah, totally a coincidence.
Oh.
Totally.
Whoa, there goes that list. Now some more normal questions about pictures and people. There's an interesting black and white photo out there, probably from around the 80s, of you holding a gun up to what looks like a pair of sideways wax lips in your other hand while wearing a preacher's outfit. What is your stand about gun control?
I wish that they'd enforce the laws, actually. I still don't think that general population needs assault weapons. And I don't want to give weapons to psychos and teenagers. But I think, I do. I think people should, adults that prove that they're stable, have the right to have a gun if they want, sure. Because we live in a very dangerous, hideous world, and you might want it for self-protection. That's your choice. And then that's it. But the NRA is out of their mind. They're psychotic, and this fascination with guns has just taken it to such a ludicrous point where there is more guns than people in the United States, but only 5% of the population owns all those guns. So just think about that.
Right. You think about that now. I'm right. Do you remember that picture of you with the gun and the sideways wax lips? What was that, from some kind of a film or some kind of the one where you're...
No, it was a picture I did when I thought I was going to be writing an essay on the state of the world, and it was about the theme of what the divide between spirituality and religion was. Because I was saying, look, spirituality and religion are at loggerheads. It's like, it's the opposite, right? If you're spiritual, you're not going to be part of organized religion.
Yeah.
And so I was just grabbing some of the, imagery of, the priest, and then the gun, the lips, sensuality, and just having fun, being funny, so that people would look at it and go, what the hell is he trying to say? This is weird.
That worked. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. We got the explanation for that. Can you tell us about the pic of you and Amy, the orangutan, from 2000?
Yeah, at that point I was directing a lot of commercials, and the orangutan was part of a commercial we were shooting for, oh God, what was it? It was like a ridiculous product that's been around forever, like Tang.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a Tang commercial. Ah! Okay.
I know. And I was, of course, I've had a fascination, with primates, right? DEVO, humans, monkeys, Well, in the presence of a real primate, it was awesome, and it was frightening, and you realize just how amazing these creatures are and how smart they are. Luckily, that was an infant, it's like she was very young, and I was still naive enough to think that this trainer wasn't using any terrible, inhumane tactics on these orangutans, and it's not true. They're very mean to them. So the way she let me hold her and put her arms around me, probably the only reason. I mean, she had enough strength to break my fucking arm in half, but she didn't. But the only reason was she'd already been fear-based trained.
And it probably had a little something to do with you being a nice guy, right?
I would hope. I think she knew I liked her.
Right, well, you're not a bad person versus a good person. They can tell, right?
You would hope, yeah. You'd like to think so.
I think, yeah, certain animals, especially the primates, some of them are a little smarter than we are.
I think so.
Okay, speaking of monkeys, some questions about your friends and comrades. I'll mention the name, and you tell me how you met and how's the relationship going these days, okay?
Tune in again for part 2 with Jerry Casale.
Jerry Casale! It's Italian!